Today we're going to use one of these cheap plaster molds that we made last week to make these recycled paper masks with a little bit of Emmy and Gaga and Rita mixed in. Let's go to the studio. Yes. And we're going to work on putting paper into a mold so that we can show everybody how to do it. Right, Rita? Yes, let's go. Come on, let's go. Emmy's ready. Come on, let's go. There are different mold releases for different applications. For paper into a plaster mold, I like to use wax shoe polish with turpentine. You don't have to use turpentine, you can use any kind of thinner. A magic orange will work. I use PVA glue to stick the pieces of paper in, thinned down with a little bit of water. Craft paper, you can use newspaper. You can use some other papers that you can recycle from your house, but they really need to be thin enough. I like to tear them. This mold is very small, so these pieces have to be torn very small so that they can be pushed into the smallest parts of this little mold. That's exactly what I'm doing here, is really pushing with the brush, pushing those little pieces of paper into the deep crevices and texture in this little mold. And then what I'm going to do is make this flange, which I use to get the piece out of the mold. I figured out that it needs to be 3 layers thick, and those layers need to fold over into the mold in order to be strong enough to use to take the paper out of the mold. This is future me here telling you that don't do this. Don't try to put the paper paste into the mold to fill up crevices and stuff, especially a small mold like this. It made the surface of the piece shrink way too much. I had to do far more work having to clean up this mess at the surface of the mold than if I had just put in 4 or 5 layers of tiny little pieces. For this piece, because it's jewelry, I am putting in about 8 layers or 10 layers to make it nice and strong. And this wire ring. For other pieces, the flange is part of the way that I get the piece out, and the flange is what I use to join. Now, since this piece is only just one piece, the flange isn't necessary for joining. I'm going to use this piece as a piece of jewelry, and the flange will become part of the piece. Then I'm tacking the wire in, and I'll let the whole thing dry for a couple of days. This is Emmy and Gaga and Rita's kennel. We lock them in at night so that they don't get out and fight with wild animals and get sprayed by skunks. But Rita, the athletic escape artist that she is, has figured out how to jump out the back of the kennel and managed to make more work for Rogelio. It turns out that this cut, sharpened, thrift store paring knife is the perfect tool for me to use to get the pieces out of the molds. That's great! Yay! It's very hard to see. I'm sorry about that. And it needs some repair work because I worked on it really, really quickly. I put one layer of very small pieces of paper into the mold here first. And then I filled the back with paper paste. It did shrink. So what that means is that it needs 2, maybe 3 layers of small pieces of paper before I put that paper paste in here. I put this wire in here before I took the piece out of the mold, and I was worried that the piece wouldn't come out of the mold with the wire in it, that it wouldn't flex. But it didn't need to flex, and it came out of the mold really, really easily. I'm going to finish filling the back of the piece a little bit more with paper paste now that it won't affect the face. This part also is to make the piece a little more sturdy so that I can drill through the flanges and add some kind of cording. These paper rings are for strength, and then I'm going to beautify the back. Oh my goodness, it's so bad. It needs so much work. Well, the back looks good. It'll give me the opportunity to show you how I work with the paper paste and with the little pieces of craft paper on the surface. There are a bunch of nooks and crannies, and what I'm doing is filling those with paper paste first. And then just directly over the paper paste, I'll put craft paper. You know, it may shrink a little bit, probably not. It's such a small amount of paper paste that I'm using. But if it does shrink a little bit, I'll come back in another time, a couple days later, and put some more paper paste or some more paper. Another thing is that the craft paper has a pretty decent thickness, and I can fix a lot of the surface just by using layers of craft paper. And I don't want to bore you with this forever work of finishing and cleaning up this surface. So I'm going to cut away from here to a little bit further along. Let me know if you like these cuts and this speed of editing or not, and I'll, change things up. Putting marks on it in order to drill holes through to put some cord or something. I'm not sure exactly what yet. But this video has gotten a little bit long, so I think I'll show you that in the next video. The next video is going to be about finishes. So this is a test piece with paper paste on it, and these are a bunch of test pieces with different glues. I'm going to try those stains. We'll make a trip to Colima and practice with the stains and finish and stain that piece.